Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright. Welcome back to the Great British Bake Off, where this week our contestants...
In the tent this week.
Yeah.
Our contestants will have to bake a loaf of sourdough bread.
Funny joke, funny joke, funny joke.
Yeah, topical.
Topical British humor.
Yep.
Something about the Prime Minister.
Yeah, something about the Queen maybe, but
no,
not too far.
Not the Queen anymore.
Not the Queen. Yeah, that's true.
Rip.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna be Paul Hollywood's next Great British Baker. That's what you get, right, when you win.
Yeah, he walks up and he says,
"Here's your British citizenship."
Congratulations. It wasn't overworked or underproved.
Underproved.
You're now the Great British Baker.
I am now getting back into making bread. I was briefly into it. It was kind of a COVID hobby for a minute there. And then I stopped for a while just because I was lazy. But I got really invested in making my own sourdough starter. So I'm currently doing science in my kitchen and growing a sourdough starter right now. I feel like this is the start of a whole new me.
Yeah. I just woke up one day and there was a jar of stuff. I didn't know what it was.
On the counter.
On the counter. And it was just there. So.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
We'll see if it works out. I don't know anything about bread.
I just
eat it.
Yeah, I know some about bread, but I've never made sourdough. I've only ever used like instant yeast or activated yeast, but sourdough starter is like its own natural yeast and leavening, so you just use that, I guess.
Cage-free yeast.
Cage-free yeast, yeah. Mm-hmm. Grass-fed.
Grass-fed. No antibiotics.
Yep. Unless they're
hormones.
Putting that in the flour
no
that
sugar
I'm using.
added.
Vegan, non-GMO.
100% real fruit juice from concentrate.
From concentrate. Yeah, so I'm gonna get back into my bread making era, which I'm really excited about because bread is one of the few...
The founding fathers.
No.
The few, the proud.
I was going to say one of the few simple pleasures in the hellish landscape that we call human life.
Yeah. It's
just me and bread against the world.
I don't know that the people who are in the baking competitions would agree when the host is like, all right, you got 30 seconds.
30 seconds to make a cake and put fondant on it.
Yeah. Make a cake using ingredients no one's ever heard of before.
Get good, loser.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do baking competitively because I get too stressed.
Well, we watch a lot of like competition shows.
Yeah.
About a number of topics. Like, we're kind of all over the place. I think we watch the most cooking and baking stuff, but we also watch stuff like Forged in Fire, which I don't know if we've talked about that on here before, but we probably have.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar, Forged in Fire is like a blacksmithing competition.
Yeah, they
make
knives.
One thing that's like universal across all these competition shows is that they don't give enough time for these things to actually come out good.
No.
And when they do come out good, it's kind of a miracle.
Right. It's like 90% luck that it worked out that way for them.
Yeah. Like, of course they're skilled to do it. I look at any time anyone's baking anything and I'm like, I couldn't do that. When I watch Nailed It, I'm like, that's approximately what you'd get out of me doing it. And I've tried doing stuff.
Honestly, I feel like Nailed It is a big culprit of this because not only do they have people who are not professional bakers, but they give them like way less time than even a professional would use.
Right. But although with Nailed It, I think that's kind of
that's the point,
the idea of it. But there are other ones where it's like, I mean, even Great British Bake Off. Yeah, they're like,
there's not always enough time.
You're in a tent with like 15 ovens all making the same thing, and it's hot outside.
It's hot outside.
Make ice cream, and you're like, how am I supposed to do this? But yeah, that's like kind of the universal thing is they don't give them enough time, which I get it. It's drama and everything. I get it, but I would never, if I was on one of these shows, because I was good enough to be on one of them, and I'm not. But if I was, I would never feel bad for going home because it's not like realistic standards. Like you can't be like, I'm not a good baker or blacksmith.
Yeah.
Which that's a crossover that maybe
baking and what they should do.
You have to bake a cake in the forge.
You bake a cake in the forge, and then you're also forging a knife that you use to cut and serve the cake.
Yeah. You have to use the oven.
You have to make all the utensils that you'll use.
You have to make your cake pans.
Yes.
in the forge. Competitor, we have an issue here. Your cake pan doesn't meet parameters.
We asked for a cake pan that was a 9-inch round.
You gave us an 11.5 inch. And for that reason, I'm going to have to ask you to step off the forge floor. If you haven't seen Forged in Fire, that reference means nothing to you. But that was a pretty spot on Will Willis impression. So yeah. Watch the show, okay?
It's a great show.
And you can watch Will Willis shoot a sword with a bullet to test if their swords are bulletproof for some reason. Because as everyone knows, in the Great Battle, in the Great Wars, people were running around slicing bullets in half.
Right, and that was really the most important quality. Yeah. Honestly, like, ever since we started doing this podcast, it's really making me confront just how much trash television I watch.
I always knew how much trash television I watched.
Like, I think I was in denial about it, where I was like, no,
That's
I'm
fair.
Just like a casual fan. I spend like a lot of my time watching competition and reality TV.
See, the secret is, I think most people spend a lot of their time watching trash television.
Yeah.
It's just not necessarily trash to them.
Right.
There are some things that they're like exceptions, right? Like if you watch like The Boys, or when Game of Thrones was like at its peak, like that's not trash television.
Sure.
Right? Like those are like cultural phenomena shows or whatever.
Right.
Or they're just like good, or like The Bear on Hulu, which I don't think you've seen, but
I've seen a few of the episodes in the first season.
But I'm a really big fan of it. Those are
that's happening in my head all the time. I don't need it.
Hands.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of trash TV out there.
Yeah, totally.
And it's good. It's good for the soul. It heals you because you can watch it and you can be like, wow, these people are bad and stupid.
I think that's what gets me is if I'm ever feeling like, well, like I'm not really doing a lot with my life, like, oh, I don't have a lot going on, or oh, you know, I failed at this or whatever.
I can put on Love is Blind or Perfect
Exactly.
Match
and then I'm like, at least I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know who I'm glad I'm not?
Who?
Johnny Depp in A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's right. We watched it.
Yep.
And you're here to listen to us talk about it.
You already knew that because you saw the title of the episode.
You saw the title of the episode.
Yep. But that's what we watched. We watched it. Was that last night? That feels like a lifetime ago.
It was earlier this week, but it wasn't last night.
Yeah.
It was earlier this week. I don't remember what day, but it wasn't last night.
We watched it. And it of course was a rewatch. We've both seen this movie multiple times.
Yeah.
For me, Nightmare on Elm Street is the first horror movie that I remember watching. I can't say with 100% certainty it was the first one I ever watched because I don't remember my early childhood like that. Yeah. But like, it's the first one that when I think back, it's my earliest memory of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And it so legitimately freaked me out because I was like a little kid and I watched it with my dad and my brother.
Yeah.
And I remember making my dad like stand guard outside the bathroom while I used the toilet because I was afraid that like Freddy was gonna come through and get me.
Yeah, and he definitely will.
He will. Do that. Yeah, he'll strike when you're most vulnerable. So this movie has a soft little place in my heart because I feel like it's kind of it was like my little intro to horror started a whole love affair, lifelong. Yeah. But I love this movie.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of, I mean, it's not like, it's not bad. It's like okay for me. I think it's fun, but I didn't really grow up with it. I didn't see it until like way later.
Yeah.
And I kind of prefer some of the other big horror names over it, you know? Yeah. Not to knock Freddy, I think is like a fun
He's super
character.
Fun. He's always got a little snappy one-liner.
That's the thing I think I like the most about it, which it kind of peaks in the third one.
Yeah.
I think.
Welcome to primetime, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
He has so many. I also really love how at a certain point, they were like, Freddy just calls everybody bitch.
That's his thing.
And every line, every like good line just ends with something bitch. Yep. And he really puts his whole Freddacy into it. Yeah. And it's good.
He really leans into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean I do think the movie's fun. It's cool because it is that like peak 1980s
very 80s
horror. It's got a lot of practical effects in it. There is obviously CGI and stuff.
Some of the bad 80s CGI.
Yeah, some of the bad 80s CGI, but it doesn't stand out like too badly. There's like one scene where one of the characters relatively early is like running from Freddy, and she like runs past a tree, and then he pops out from behind the tree, and it looks like a bad version of if you've ever been to Disney and the Haunted Mansion ride.
Oh yeah.
When they have the ghosts dancing on the floor, they use that like mirror thing or whatever to do the projector thing. I'm pretty sure that is what they're doing to have him be able to pop out from behind the tree. For some reason. I don't really know why they did it that way, because he doesn't pop out until after she runs past the tree, so he could have just been behind it and then just popped out, but it's clearly a CGI effect when he does this.
Who knows?
But he pops out and he's like kind of transparent.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird, but...
Yeah. I feel like it, in a weird way, not only because it's an 80s movie, but also because of the nature of it being like dreams and nightmares, it kind of doesn't bother me, some of the cheesier effects.
And that's what I was going to say, was that, yeah, like there are things that stand, like even the weirder effects that kind of stand out when you remember that he's a dream demon,
right?
That he exists within people's dreams,
right?
And really just when they're asleep, unless you're talking about the second film,
which we don't talk about.
Yeah, the second film's awful. Don't watch that one.
I mean, I still think you should watch it, but just don't.
Just remove it from the timeline. It's not. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, but like when you remember that he, does things in dreams, then it makes it like, even though they're still kind of cheesy, it kind of circles back to like, no, that would be kind of terrifying. Because like when you have dreams,
sometimes things are like all wacky and like
even over the top things in your dreams, like you'll still have like a nightmare about it, even though it's not really realistic. That
right, and like when you wake up, you're like, that isn't scary, but in the moment you feel scared.
Yeah, so I think it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's give a
little background just in case anyone needs a refresher if you haven't seen this movie.
Yeah.
This did come out in 1984. Mm-hmm. It is a supernatural slasher film. That's kind of its subgenre. It was written and directed by Wes Craven, who of course has a long history in the horror genre and is a titan of the industry. It has a pretty good cast too. So we have Heather Langenkamp playing Nancy Thompson, Robert Englund, of course, the master, playing Freddy, and then we have Johnny Depp in his first role. It actually says introducing Johnny Depp like in the credits as Glenn, and then we have their two friends, Amanda Weiss as Tina and Nick Corey as Rod, and then there's a few other characters in there. The mom is Renee Blakely. And the dad, who's like he's like a lieutenant for the police force or something, is John Saxon. So we got some people in there. And basically the prompt of it is that a group of Midwestern teenagers start to have nightmares about this same creepy figure And then it like escalates where they start dying unexplainably in the dreams. It seems like the things that happen in their dreams are happening to them in real life. And then Nancy, who's our main character, is kind of trying to like figure this out and figure out how to defeat him. And as she does so, she kind of uncovers this like dark secret of like her parents' generation and everything, of like why he's doing this. So yeah, that's the basic prompt of it. It's if you die in the dream, you die in real life.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
We don't really get a reason why Freddy is able to just be in their dreams right at the start.
I don't know.
Of this.
Yeah.
Like in later things, there's this whole the story gets a little convoluted.
Big time.
Eventually,
convoluted.
In order to combat against Freddy, because like they can't truly kill him or whatever, they get people to start taking these drugs that like
prevent you from having dreams.
Yeah, that prevent you from dreaming, so you can't dream about him. But then I think there's also the idea that if people know about him,
it's kind of this like legend thing where like he grows in power as he is like mythologized.
Yeah.
So the more people know about him, the more powerful he is.
Yeah, the more people know, the more people remember, the more powerful he is. So we don't really get any of that in the first one. He's just kind of there. Yeah,
and he seems to only be targeting this particular small group of people.
Yeah, like none of the other teens in town are being affected by this.
Which I guess is just because of the parent connection. I don't know.
I mean, I guess, but like, isn't the idea that it's like all of the parents got together and did this, right? I would think
the most.
Not just
they describe it as like a mob, so I would think it would be and the majority.
Like a mob's not like four
people, 4 adults,
4 adults burning down a building.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's interesting. They don't really spend a lot of time like explaining it. It doesn't really matter either, not for the first one anyway.
Yeah, it's something that they explore later on, and like. So Wes Craven has said that his inspiration for this concept was this series of unexplained deaths that happened in the early 80s among this group of people. They were like Hmong immigrants in the US or something. Mm-hmm. And there was this phenomenon that was happening where like several, like dozens of people had a really bad nightmare and then like refused to sleep for a period of time. So they would get into like sleep deprivation. Mm-hmm. And then when they would finally fall asleep, they would die in their sleep. And it was like just a totally unexplained, like it's technically listed as sudden unexplained death syndrome or something like that. And he was basically like, what's that about? What's going on there?
It's a dream demon.
It's a dream demon, probably.
Be. But yeah, it follows obviously this group of friends. We start out with Tina, is her name, the character, and she I think we're immediately in a dream when the movie starts. Yeah,
we have kind of a montage when the credits are rolling of Freddy like making his
iconic knife glove thing.
But the first part of the movie is immediately in Tina's dream.
And she like almost gets got, and then she like wakes up and her mom is like, you either gotta cut your fingernails or stop having nightmares, because she has like these gashes
slash through her nightgown.
Where Freddy almost got her, I guess. And then she talks to her friends, and a lot of them are like, you're crazy, until they come over to her house like later that night for like a sleepover thing because her mom's out of town or something.
She doesn't want to sleep alone.
Yeah, she doesn't want to sleep alone.
She's freaked out.
And then she kind of gets the reveal that Nancy also had the dream about the same figure. And then Glenn is alluding to the idea that he's also had
he doesn't say it outright. It's strongly implied because he says that he had a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then when they're talking about what happened in their nightmare, he kind of gives like a meaningful look to suggest that like but I don't think he wants to freak them out.
Yeah. Like they talk about the man and he has a weird hat and a dirty red and green sweater. And he has this look of like, oh, I dreamed about that too. But he doesn't say that. And then Rod comes over. Yeah. And
Rod's a bad boy.
Yeah, Rod is a bad boy.
Yeah.
And he also explains that he does outright say that he's had a nightmare, but he doesn't explain this until later. He doesn't say it with the whole group. He just says it to Tina.
Right.
And he's like, boys can have nightmares too. You don't have
a corner on the market.
Yeah,
on the nightmare market.
Rod is so funny as a character because there's they're all freaked out having this like conversation, Glenn, Tina, and Nancy.
Yeah.
And then they hear this like screeching sound coming from outside, like right after they were talking about Freddy scratching his knives on stuff, which would absolutely dull those things, but he's a dream demon, so it doesn't matter.
It's fine. In the dreams, it sharpens them.
He can scratch his things on the walls and pipes as a treat.
Yeah.
But so they're like talking about this, and then like a screeching sound comes from outside, and they all go to look for some reason, and Glenn is out there, and he's like, I guess it was nothing, and then Rod tackles him.
Right.
And Glenn says something to him. I don't remember what
Glenn
it was.
Glenn just like ribs him, like he just kind of complains about the whole thing, and Rod immediately whips out a switchblade.
Yeah, he just pulled out a switchblade, and I'm like, whoa.
What the fuck you talking about? And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Rod's crazy.
This went from 0 to 1,000 so quick.
Yeah. And then, so this is when Freddy gets his like first kill. Everyone kind of like goes to bed.
Yeah.
And
but Tina falls back into a dream.
And Freddy gets her. And this is like, we see Freddy in the first dream sequence at the beginning of the movie. But he's not really doing anything in that one. That's
he's kind of just being menacing.
Yeah, he's not doing anything that's like, I've got weird dream powers and stuff. He's kind of like, he's kind of doing the thing where he's like, he's always around every corner you go to or
he's
whatever.
He's just like building up the fear.
But he's not like doing weird stuff or whatever.
No, he's not doing weird stuff yet.
In this dream sequence, when he comes back to get Tina, this is when stuff gets like weird. So like, she hears like pebbles being thrown at her window, and I guess Freddy's just like
he's just down there throwing pebbles.
So she decides to go outside, but she doesn't put pants on or shoes. Yeah, and she ends up walking out into this like a fucking alley. Yeah, it's weird. And this is when we see Freddy in this moment, and he's doing this thing where he's got his arms out, and they like do like a wide shot.
They're like super long.
And they're super long, and it's weird because it makes his body seem extra short.
He looks tiny.
He looks like really tiny, and he's got like really, really long arms that are like scrunched up, and they're like extending. Different. Yeah, he's just built different. He got that dog in him.
My favorite thing is that she asks, "Who are you?" And he just lifts up his sweater and cuts his like bicep or something, like his nipple open.
Yeah.
And he's got maggots under his skin, and I'm like, what is
but
that?
He doesn't say anything. He just does that, and he has like this grin on his face.
I think you'll find that this will answer your question.
Satisfactory. So then she runs away. Yeah, she runs away.
Also, Tina, and I know that she's in a dream, but in every dream that we have from Tina's perspective, she is doing the most ridiculous, like, running through jelly walk in these, where she's like slowly and like flailing her arms and tumbling forward, and it feels like she is walking through like quicksand, but she isn't, which again makes sense because it's a dream. I think we've all had that sensation of like you can't run in a dream, but it's so frustrating to watch because I'm like, why are you just like taking these prancy little steps? Like, run, bitch.
And then when she passes the tree and then he pops out, she turns around, right? And then, like, looks at him again. Yeah. And this is when he, like, holds up his hand.
And he cuts off his fingers.
Cuts off a couple of... He's like, get a load of this. And he, like, cuts off, like, a couple of fingers. And then, like... It's very clearly like a pump they have rigged up into like his sleeve or whatever, and it's like this green goo shooting out of his fingers, and it's that like spurting that's very mechanical.
Yes.
And he's just, it's so funny because like it's clearly practical effect. They stay on it for a second when he does it to get the blood shooting out, but you can see Robert Englund as Freddy. He's just standing there with that like smile on his face, and you see his eyes kind of dart back and forth like, you seeing this?
He's like,
it's so funny.
If he wasn't doing a murder, he's like somebody's weird uncle.
Yeah, he's kind of just a silly, goofy guy.
You kids want to see a trick?
You want to see a trick? Like he learned magic as like as a fun little hobby. He's pulling quarters out from behind their ears. There's a universe where Freddy's actually pretty chill.
Yeah, he's super chill. He's just somebody's drunk uncle. Yeah, but I will say, I do think, because obviously that's all within the dream, but the big reveal, because Tina and Rod are sharing a bed that night, and when he actually catches up to Tina and starts attacking her, Freddy, like we see Rod wake up because of the disturbance, and we're seeing everything that's happening to her in the dream happen in real life. So she's like being like lifted in the air. Yeah, she starts like
to Rod it looks like she's like floating in the air.
Yeah, she's being like thrown around, and he can see the like cuts form on her body, but he doesn't see, there's obviously like, he can't see Freddy, so he can't see the knives or anything, but he sees the blood and everything, and he's freaking out. I thought that was a pretty well done scene, and it's like super gruesome. Like they really let that go on and on with her just screaming and blood going everywhere.
Well, yeah, because after she gets like the cuts on her, like, so Rod gets up and he's like, what's going on? And he pulls the blanket off because he seems like, because like Tina's screaming, but she's not awake yet, I guess.
Yeah, she's still in the dream.
She's still in the dream, and he pulls the blanket off, but he only sees her under there, and then she gets the cuts across her like abdomen, and then she gets lifted into the air and like pinned onto the ceiling, and she's like crawling around and rolling around on the ceiling, and then she eventually plummets back onto the bed, and there's like so much blood. It's crazy. There's a lot of blood in this movie.
Yeah.
And
over 500 gallons.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this scene, it's so funny just because of Rod, and it's just Rod's reaction to it. You hear him being like, I'm gonna catch whoever did this.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Nancy and Glenn have like woken up and they're trying to like get in the room, but it's locked. And when they finally get in, Rod's not in there. He's like opened the window and jumped out from the second floor.
He's like, ooh, when I catch you.
Yeah. And so this leads kind of to the crux of the whole thing, where the police think Rod killed Tina, so they're looking for him. And then Rod does like the stupidest thing imaginable, which is he waits till the next day, and as Nancy is walking to school,
he like grabs
her just like on the sidewalk.
Meanwhile, her dad is literally
he like steps out with a gun and is just like, I'll kill you.
Police, yeah.
And they're being like actively watched by undercover agents, which are the most obvious. Like Nancy spots one of them. It's so silly. Yep. But anyway, so like all of that happens, and so a lot of the movie is centered around the police not believing that Rod didn't do this, and being a little confused because like he's also saying he didn't do this, and Nancy being like, he didn't do this, we don't know who did it, but like whatever. And then she starts getting more and more of these nightmares.
She starts putting together, okay, there's somebody in our dreams that's trying to kill us, and Freddy starts kind of picking everybody off while she's kind of helpless to help the situation, because the police aren't going to believe that a dream demon did this. You know, like they just think Rod did it. And so she's trying to figure out like, how can I stop this guy or bring him to justice, or like, what even is this fucking guy, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is kind of a mystery where they're putting together clues and trying to, you know, like they don't know right away that he's Freddy Krueger. That's something they have to find out.
Yeah. Which how did she find that out again?
My understanding of it is that so later on in the film, after Rod, I think, has also died.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, just to kind of tangent there, Freddy kills Rod while he's in the jail cell by hanging him using a bedsheet.
Yeah.
In a way that would just kind of look like a suicide.
Right. So he's
out of like guilt. So Freddy's like covering his tracks.
Yeah, like he's like, oh, I don't want the police
to
find out.
As though the police can do anything. Yeah. He exists in dreams. Bullets do nothing to him.
Right. He could literally do whatever he wants. But yeah, that's just to add to the nobody believes you, Nancy, you know. Yeah, but anyway. as Nancy becomes like more disturbed, she's not sleeping, you know, her parents are concerned, so they put her in this like sleep study to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And she has a nightmare during the sleep study, and when they go in to like wake her up because she's basically what they perceive as she's having like a night terror, she whips out this hat.
Yeah.
And she says, I pulled it out of my dream.
She says, it's not a phase, Mom, and she puts it on.
Yeah. She pulled it out of her dream, and inside the hat is
That's
like
right. It
F.
says,
Kruger or whatever.
Kruger. Yeah, the hat doesn't like Freddy.
No. So, I just now got that. I was like, what does that mean?
The little spirit pops out and says, thank you for freeing me. And then the hat disappears.
Finally.
I'm free.
Yeah. But anyway.
It's a weird movie.
It's a really weird movie. But yeah, she pulls it out of her dream. And this is when she kind of starts to like confront her mom about stuff, because it seems like her mom, like when her mom sees the Kruger thing,
yeah,
she has a reaction to that.
Yeah.
And so Nancy is immediately like, you know who this is.
Yeah.
And I'm in danger now, and like you have to tell me what you know. And the mom is basically like, you're hysterical, you haven't slept, and I'm an alcoholic, and your father left me. And so she's just like, no help at all.
they get into the confrontation in the kitchen, and her mom is like has made like coffee for herself or whatever, but then poured vodka in her coffee, and then Nancy comes in and there's just a cup that she makes for herself, not with the vodka.
No.
Because she's a teen.
Yeah.
And she drinks it, and her mom's like, stop drinking that coffee. You have to sleep. And they get into a fight, and then it's not funny. Like, the action itself is not like funny, but just I guess the idea of it in the movie is her mom slaps Nancy, and it's just, I don't know what it is about like on screens, just one slap or punch. It's always funny to me. I don't know why.
I thought it was kind of buck wild too, where I'm just like, okay, lady, like this is not helping.
I don't remember fully, but I don't even think Nancy says anything. No, she does kind of say something a little
she's basically calling her mom out on the alcoholism, where she's like, okay, so I guess you would just prefer if I'm like you and I get good and loaded. And
that's right. She says get loaded, and she slaps her.
She's like, don't talk about my alcoholism.
It's the 80s. You can't confront that.
I'm a housewife. So I understand she was being a little smart mouth, but still, you don't slap your children. So her mom's holding out on her.
Yeah.
And she's trying to figure out, you know, who is this person and what's the connection. This does eventually lead to her mom deciding to tell her the truth. And
when she's like fully drunk.
Yeah, she's completely drunk off her ass. And what the mom explains is that years before, there was this man named Freddy Krueger who was a child murderer. And he was convicted, but then it got overturned because there was some kind of minor technicality.
Yeah,
with
and so he walked free.
The court, so he was out. And I don't know why they didn't just fucking do it again, charge him again.
Double jeopardy.
But if it got overturned, then
double jeopardy.
Okay. But
you can't have Alex Trebek get you twice. That's the rule.
But anyway, so the parents decided to take justice into their own hands.
Yeah. And
they like cornered him in this like abandoned warehouse where he used to hang out, and like burned it down with him inside. Basically, their goal would be to protect the kids and to get retribution for, you know, what happened. And they have essentially tried to like cover all this up and make it one, to protect themselves so that they don't get in trouble for doing a murder. But also to like protect the kids and not like let the kids know what happened. And
I guess to like prove that she knows what's going on, although Nancy is like so deep into this that I don't think she would have required like physical evidence of it. Her mom brings her to the basement in their house, and she whips out the glove out of the furnace. And I was like, why do you have that?
I took a little souvenir, I guess.
Why wouldn't you just destroy it?
Took a little souvenir.
Like, that's psychotic. Like, I understand, I can follow the reasoning of being like, no, this was a child murderer.
Yeah.
And we're going to kill him.
This guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah. But to keep a little souvenir from it, be like, how did you even get it?
I guess they waited until it was ash and went in and
maybe nobody called the fire department to get alerted or nothing? Nobody was there? They were just like, all right, we're going to wait several hours for this building to fully burn down, and then I'm going to go in there to check to see.
Just make sure that he died, you know?
But of course, like, of course he's dead.
Even though the parents killed him, they don't believe any of this supernatural stuff. Like, she's trying to say, you're just having nightmares, but like, he's already dead. Like, we already protected you. You don't have to be afraid. We killed him. Yeah. But of course, Nancy is trying to explain, like, no, he's fucking coming back in our dreams and trying to kill the children of, you know, Elm Street or whatever.
Which is why he's, I guess, specifically targeting these teens. Yeah. Although, to me, that doesn't, it doesn't really make sense that, like, it was only,
I guess it was just like
4 different,
one block of parents that were like, we gotta do something.
They got together at like a neighborhood watch meeting and were like, that's it, I'm burning the building down.
I'm burning it down and I'm stealing his glove.
And I'm taking that glove.
Yeah. But
and none of you can stop me. Also, let's just talk about it real quick. It's insane that Freddy was a child murderer already, right? But like, to make the glove, like, that's not a thing from like when he became a dream demon. He had that before. Yeah. So did he make a new one after he was convicted and then walked? Because like, if everything got overturned, they're not like, all right, well, here's your glove back. It's not evidence anymore. There's no way they give that back to him.
Well, maybe that's the montage in the beginning. He's making it, so.
But he was making it in the dream when he was going after Tina.
I don't know. Maybe he did make it in the dream. Well, I guess it was in the house. So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Where did the glove come from?
He made a new one, or the DA was like, I think the glove the mom has
the glove version 2, or is that the first glove? And if it's the first one, why did they give it back to him?
Yeah, how did that get there?
Look, you can walk free. I'm not giving you the glove back. There's no way that's not used for murdering. Yeah. I don't care what the technicality says.
It's so impractical for any other use except for doing crime. Yeah. So... yeah.
Which, a little, I guess, fun fact about that glove, apparently, like, it actually, like, hurt Robert Englund several times.
I think, like, literally the first time he put it on, it, like, cut his hand.
Yeah. It was like, it was just straight up pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, but, yeah, the later half of this movie kind of mixes, or later third, I should say, of this movie kind of mixes some like Home Alone-esque stuff in it.
It's
eventually we get down to it just being Nancy left. Glenn dies, and probably the most iconic.
Yes, he has the iconic death where he's laying in bed and then he starts to get like slurped into the bed. Yeah. And then a just big old volcanic eruption of blood comes out of the bed and covers the ceiling and the walls.
Which was like, it was a super technical achievement when they did this in the 80s. They had to build a whole set and they had to build it upside down, which, unless you're looking for it, they do a really good job of not necessarily making it look like it's upside down, but there are certain things that you can tell upside down. One of the things that I think makes it like a really cool effect is that Glenn's room is really busy. He has a lot of stuff all over his room. He's a teenage boy. He's got posters. There's just junk everywhere. Yeah. And so when they do this, they manage to put like a lot of that junk, but they have to do it so it's upside down to make the effect where the blood's, you know, shooting out and like the room's like spinning and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it was apparently like pretty dangerous when they were doing a lot of this stuff was dangerous.
A lot of the stuff they were doing.
But this was the 80s and horror movies, so like it was barely watched.
Actors had
at
no
all,
rights.
So yeah. But yeah, it's a really, really cool scene. It is very bloody. By kind of the nature of it, it's literally a fountain of blood, a geyser of blood shooting out of a bed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, Glenn gets got, and then it's just down to Nancy, who has been barricaded in her house by her mom.
Her drunk mom is like, "You're gonna sleep, so help me God."
Do you think her mom had, like, a contractor come out and put the bars on the house, or did she do it while she was drunk?
I would assume she paid someone to do it.
Yeah.
She doesn't give the vibes
they worked
of
fast
a DIY.
then, because Nancy was like out of the house for like half a day.
Yeah, she just like
and
went out for a few hours.
she comes back home and there's bars all over the house, and then she gets locked inside.
Yeah.
And she's trying to tell her dad, who is investigating across the street, that's where Glenn lives.
Right.
That I know who did it. It's Freddie.
Yeah.
And this is one of the best parts is she's telling her dad, I need you to come break the door down in exactly 20 minutes.
Yep. I'm going to go into the dream and I'm going to pull him out, and I need you to be there to arrest him.
Yeah, you're going to arrest this dream guy.
So she tells that to her dad, and her dad is like, okay, yeah,
go
whatever.
To sleep.
Go to bed. And then she's like, okay, plan now in motion.
Yeah.
And there is a long montage where she just starts setting up the most elaborate booby traps throughout her whole house.
Which she is setting up not because she just innately knows how to do this. Earlier in the movie, she's gotten this like pamphlet book thing.
Yeah.
That is like how to...
It's like a DIY home defense.
And like booby trap thing or whatever. And so we get this montage of her like filing out like a light bulb and filling it with gunpowder. And then screwing it into a thing. She literally does
the like sledgehammer like connected to the doorknob so it comes down and hits you. Like she does all of it. And it's crazy to me because the way that the movie is set up, it suggests that she did all of this prep in those 20 minutes before she told her dad to come to the house.
Yeah, well, she says, come wake me up in exactly 20, or come and break the door down in exactly 20 minutes. And then we get this montage, and then she talks to her mom.
They have a whole heart-to-heart with the mom, too, where she's, like, laying her mom down to bed and being like, don't worry, like, it's all gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And then she
changes
into her pajamas.
Yes, which is insane for this. But she goes to get in bed, and she goes to set a timer to wake her up.
Yeah.
And she sets it for 10 minutes.
So
which means
she booby-trapped the entire house, healed her relationship with her mom, changed her PJs, all in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and she's expecting to fall asleep
immediately.
And everything.
Which, I mean, she's sleep-deprived. So
she is sleep-deprived. She's like, I think she was saying it's been like 7 days or
7 days. And she makes a joke about how like the Guinness record is like 11 or something like so that. I'm still good. But yeah, that was crazy nonsense to me. Like, why not just tell your dad, be here in an hour?
Yeah. Give yourself a little bit of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, set up more booby traps.
Yeah. 10 minutes?
Because I don't know that 10 minutes is enough to set up even one effective booby trap. No. You know what I mean?
I mean, she was doing some elaborate stuff. Like
the light bulb thing's the most insane to me. Like I was talking about this when I saw the book. I was like, where did she even get this book? Because I knew later on when she does the light bulb thing, I'm like, getting that book, like buying it, checking it off in the light, you're on a list now. You can't just have that book because like filling a light bulb up with gunpowder so it explodes when you turn it on, that's not like a harmless prank. That's a bomb. You've made a bomb. So you can't just have that. And also, are you expecting me to believe that the DIY booby trap, one of them is how to string a sledgehammer up?
Yeah.
You can't just figure that one out. Yeah. And also, really, you can't just swing it at him. I mean, like...
No, that'd be crazy. Yep. I'm still convinced that her dad had that from Vietnam or whatever war he was in, but I have no justification for that. That's just the only explanation.
He was like, Nancy, me and your mom are not getting along and moving out.
So you're the man of the house.
I want you to have a token to remember me by. And he gives her a booby trap book.
And she's like,
I'm never going to use this, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. It's so stupid. Oh yeah, so that's her whole plan. Basically the plan was that she was gonna be asleep long enough that she could grab hold of Freddie because she already knows she can pull stuff out from the dream because she pulled the hat out of the dream.
Yeah.
So the idea being she'll grab hold of him and then the alarm is going to wake her up at the 10-minute mark, and then she's got all these booby traps in her house, so then they'll be fighting on, like, her terms and not Freddy's terms, which is, you know, it's a strategy, and it works, you know? She does manage to pull him out, and there's kind of this, like, jump scare moment where she thinks that she didn't get him at first because he's nowhere to be seen, but then he, like, jumps out from under the bed or something and scares her, and then we get this whole action scene where they're going through all the booby traps.
Yeah, the Home Alone.
Yeah, the Home Alone nonsense, yeah. It basically leads to setting him on fire.
Yeah, and he's like running around on fire. And then one of the best things is because her dad's not there to arrest him.
Yes.
Because he didn't believe in this, right? Like, he was like, oh yeah, go to bed, you need to get some sleep.
Yeah.
And so there's like this deputy just standing in the street, and she's like trying to get him to
broke the window.
Yeah, she starts shattering the windows, and the guy's like, maybe I should get the chief. And I'm like, yeah.
What do you think?
If Freddy's not in there, even if you think she's just like
crisis.
Yeah, she's having like a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
Yes, get help.
Get some help, dude. She's gonna hurt herself. Yeah, but he's so casual with it. Yeah. He's just like, oh, you know, teenage girls and their moods.
But yeah.
But finally, the dad does come and tries to help her. You know, they break down the door, but he gets there too late, and Freddy has already, in a very dramatic way, killed the mom.
Yeah.
It's so insane. He, like, I don't know. It's like he, like, sucks the life out of her, and she becomes like mummified, and then she just like descends
through the bed into basically like hell or whatever. I don't know. The best part about that is because it's like an animatronic or whatever that they have set up on the bed, and as she's like mummified, like all skeletal and stuff, the hand raises as to be like goodbye. Nancy. Yeah. She goes down into there so bad. And then the end of this is
she thinks she beat him because she does this whole, like, I don't believe in you. You're just a dream. You know, I take back all the energy I gave you. You're nothing. You're lower than nothing. All this stuff. And Freddy's like, no. And then he, like, fades into mist as she goes to leave. But then when she leaves the room, she steps outside, and it's daytime. Like it's pretty.
She's like all dressed to go outside.
Her mom is there, and like her friends pull up in the car, and everybody's alive, and they're all like, "Come on, Nancy, let's go." But
she gets in the car, and then the top flips back, and it's the red and green stripes. The windows roll up,
and they're trapped inside.
They're not actually driving the car; it drives off, and then.
And then the mom is standing at the door, just like looking waving, fondly just like, at them.
Yeah, kids.
Until the little window that's in the door gets broken through, and a hand comes through and grabs her in. And she is so clearly a mannequin or like a blow-up doll in that moment.
Yeah, there's a cut, and when they do the cut, she's been turned into like a mannequin or blow doll or whatever, and he just yanks her through the window. It's like so silly.
It's the ending, I think, is probably the worst part of this film.
Yeah.
It's interesting because my understanding is that Wes Craven's original ending was kind of a happy ending where to some degree Nancy does defeat him by like not believing in him anymore. But then the studio was like, well, we want to leave this open for sequels. And so they were like, we should do an ending where Freddy wins so he can keep going. And then I guess this was kind of a compromise of, like, introducing the idea of defeating him, like, psychically.
Yeah.
But also, like, still leaving it open where he wasn't fully defeated so that they could keep going. I personally just think it's a little confusing.
From what I was reading about it, like the way that it's, I guess, supposed to be kind of interpreted is that it's like a dream within a dream within a dream. Like it is convoluted and like weird and a little stupid.
Yeah.
But I think it does kind of work because one of the first thing, obviously the first thing we see in the movie is him trying to get Tina. Tina wakes up. But then when they're on their way to school in the car, the red car that Glenn drives or whatever, there are these 2 or 3 girls or whatever playing like jump rope.
Yeah.
And this is when we hear the kind of the iconic
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Right. And when we see them, there is like this misty kind of fog, and it has a like dreamlike glow, and it like pans over from them as they're driving up the street. And I think this is meant to suggest that the entirety of the movie is actually a dream. So like none of it really happens, because otherwise the ending also doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Because we know Nancy survives because she's in one of the sequels.
She's in 3. Yeah. She comes back in that. So like I think it is just because like one of the last shots that we get is also those girls playing jump rope again. Singing the song again, which I think is, again, just supposed to indicate all of this is a dream.
Right.
So the entire movie's runtime
is a dream. Yeah.
Which does kind of explain why, like, certain things happen the way they happen. Like, Freddy seems to be able to, like, affect other things even though they're not always asleep.
Right. Yeah, and there's certain times where it's like there's different there are points where he scares them even though they're not having a dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Like one of my favorite moments in the movie is after Glenn gets killed, it's right before, because Nancy picks up the phone and she's like gonna try to call him.
She's trying to call, and her Glenn's parents are pissed off because
it's late,
they can see that the house is all barred up, and they're both having like a communal smoke outside their house, being like, and the dad's like, I don't want that kid talking to Glenn anymore.
Yeah. And so like she gets pissed and like rips the wire out of the wall, but then the phone starts ringing, so she's like, oh, and then she goes over and answers it, and it's Freddy, and he says, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. And then we see this shot where like the bottom of the phone that you talk into, it has like changed to look all fucked up and gnarly, and it's his tongue going, ah.
Yeah, it's really silly.
It's literally the best thing ever. But she definitely wasn't asleep.
Yeah, no, she wasn't asleep, because the whole point of it is that like she realizes what's happening to Glenn.
Yes. And she's trying to
like prevent it and everything. So like clearly either Freddy doesn't actually have to wait till they're asleep, or this is all...
Everything is a dream.
Everything is a dream. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're just not following the established rules. It's the 80s and it's the Wild West. They can do whatever they want.
They're doing whatever they want.
But I do think if you read it as the whole thing as a dream, a lot more of it makes sense. And Freddy is just toying with them because he knows he could just kill them whenever he wants, kind of a thing.
Well, and also we kind of have as the franchise goes on and we learn more about this whole component of like he gains power as people believe in him. Yeah. It kind of makes sense that he would take his time because he wants to be a legend. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and I think especially like you said, as the kind of the series goes on, like it kind of incentivizes him not to just like kill people, but instead to let some of them start talking about him to terrorize other people. Because if it is dependent on people knowing he exists, then he wants other people to find out about him so he can go into their dreams.
Exactly. So he could just easily kill these people, because the thing is, like, as soon as they fall asleep, you're just right there and just stab. Like you don't. That's it. You just do a stab. But he never does that. No. He always builds up the tension, and he has his little jokes and all that stuff.
He's just having fun.
He's having a good time. But yeah, I mean, such an iconic horror villain. Freddy, and then maybe like Chucky from Child's Play, they kind of have this similar energy of being these like, smart ass, like quippy one-liners.
Well, they're villains that like actually talk, because like,
and they're like funny.
Yeah, like the trope before this is Michael Myers who doesn't say anything, and Jason
doesn't say anything.
Who doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
So like,
but they're the opposite, where they're like these showmen who are always like yucking it up while they're also terrorizing.
Personalities that are more than just stabbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Do you want to do our rating?
Yeah, we can rate it.
I think my rating was a little bit higher than yours. So I came up with my average for all the categories ended up just being a 7 straight up.
Oh, okay. Then you're just 0.2 higher than mine.
And it looks like yours was a 6.8, which gives us a combined average of a 6.9.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. I will say I love this movie. 6.9 feels low, but I'm just trying to be fair based on like the genre as a whole.
I also like, I think this is one of those franchises, and I think maybe it's not as rare as I was going to say, because like I'm immediately thinking of like the Friday the 13th Part 6 as also being an exception to this.
Mm-hmm.
But like the third one of Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, I think is hailed as probably the best.
That movie rules.
Of them, and I would agree. Like if we're going to rate them, Dream Warriors will get a higher score because I think it's more entertaining.
Yes.
They lean more into the idea
super campy.
Of Freddy and like what he can do in a very similar way that the sixth Friday the 13th movie kind of leans into the campiness of it. Now they don't all do that. Like Halloween, I think, suffers pretty massively the longer it goes on.
Oh, big time. Those movies get...
So, like, 6.8 from me might be a little low. 6.9 might be a little low. But I think if you compare it to, like, the third one, I think it's on par, because I think the third one is easily better.
And honestly, I think anything that's, like, over a 5 is still worth watching.
Generally,
usually there's just... It's one of those things of, like, again, it's the reason we made the scorecard, because... a movie might be super entertaining, but it might have absolutely terrible acting and visuals. And so then it's going to fall somewhere in the middle, you know? And that's just kind of how it is sometimes. Like some movies are still really fun and really entertaining and worth watching, but they may not be as like technically good as other films. So I still think it's worth watching. I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, so I know I'm a little biased, but it's a great movie. Freddy's a great villain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun movie. So like, whatever, our scores be damned. It doesn't really matter. Watch it anyway. I think it's good, and it's definitely a foundational like horror.
Oh yeah,
movie.
It had a huge influence on the genre for sure. But anyway, did you have a scariest moment you wanted to go over real quick?
Probably. The Glenn death scene is probably the scariest, purely for the amount of blood that is in it. It's not really scary. Like, you don't see anything happen to Glenn. He literally gets pulled into the bed. Like, he's laying on the bed and asleep, and he just gets butt first kind of dragged down into the mattress and absorbed, and then just a geyser of blood shoots out. So you don't actually see him get like cut up or cut open. Nothing happens to him on screen. It's just geyser of blood. So if you're like uncomfortable with blood, that scene's a little rough.
My scariest scene, and I'll just go over it briefly, is after Tina has died and Nancy goes back to school, and she falls asleep in class. And when she first is like, when we first realize she's fallen asleep and she's in the dream, she hears this little voice say, "Nancy," and she turns to the side, and in the hallway is Tina in like this sort of semi-translucent body bag, and they get this like really good close-up of her face where you can kind of see like the zipper and the blood stains and all this stuff, and she just looks so like pale and deathly, and I thought that was so creepy, honestly, from more of like a psychological horror standpoint.
That part
of like
is pretty... it
would be deeply disturbing if your best friend, if you saw them in that way, and then like just a few seconds later we see the body bag being like dragged by nobody like down the hall, and it's so like disrespectful of the dead in a way that's really unsettling and disturbing. So I think that's genuinely pretty spooky.
That's a good moment.
Anyway, you got anything else for today?
I don't think so, not for this one.
Well, we are gonna do another new release next week. We are going to see A Quiet Place Day 1. And we're going to tell you all about it.
And hopefully the theater won't be bad this time.
And if it is, maybe we won't talk about it.
No, I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about it until people stop.
We have to bring shame back.
Slowly, the course of this podcast is going to change from us talking about movies and shift into us talking about theater
movie-going etiquette.
Yeah.
It's just the 101 on how to do
Bring your
that.
own snacks. I don't care about that, right? Like the snacks and stuff at the movie theater are really expensive.
Totally.
Don't package them in tin foil.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
Or like a fresh bag of chips or something like that. Nobody needs that.
Oh, man. And of course, we're continuing to accept suggestions. If you have movies that you want to hear us cover, please do send them our way. You can email us. It's firstfrightpod@gmail.com. You can also visit us on social media. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. It's @firstfrightpod, or on Facebook, it's Love at First Fright. So yeah, send us your suggestions, send us your feedback. What'd you think about Nightmare on Elm Street? Did you like it? Did you like it when he cut open his pectoral muscle and there were a bunch of bugs? Was that fun for you?
Maggoty guys.
Yeah.
His blood's green, I guess.
It's green. I think that's all we have for this week. Thanks for listening. You got it. You do it. It's your...
Yeah. Okay.
I was about to do it and I was like, that feels wrong.
You could do it. Switch it up on him.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, as always, scare well. See you next time.
Bye.